this phenomenon that I'm about to tell you is a phenomenon that I, in conversations with myself, had named the blind faith amnesia effect. Didn't know anybody else had given it a name. Didn't know anybody else had ever talked about it. But Michael Crichton, the author, apparently had. And I come across it in this article the other day, and I said, that's exactly the blind faith amnesia effect that I'm always noticing in people and noticing even in myself. But it's this phenomenon, it's this psychological, logical fallacy that human beings commit that I'm very aware of. I just didn't know that somebody else had named it. But you can call it, I think my name's better, to be honest with you, but I'm biased. Michael Crichton calls it the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. That's Gell-Mann. So I reckon it's named after somebody. Again, I call it the blind faith amnesia effect. But it goes as follows. You open the newspaper to an article on some subject that you know real well. So let's say that you're a bricklayer, or let's say you're a scientist, or let's say that you're an entertainer, a musician, a cartoonist, whatever it is. And you open up the newspaper, or let's say you turn on the nightly news. It can be either one. And you begin reading an article on a subject that you are an expert in. Let's take music. You start watching the nightly news and they begin talking about music. Or you begin reading an article in the newspaper and they start talking about music. You read the article or you watch the program on the news and you realize that this journalist has absolutely no understanding whatsoever of either the facts or the issues. Because you're the expert. As you're reading it, you go, this journalist doesn't know what he or she is talking about. If you're a bricklayer, they start talking about some brick project or something, and you're watching it and you're going, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Often, the article is so wrong, it actually presents the story backwards, reversing cause and effect. And Michael Crichton has a real good name for this. Wet streets cause rain stories. This is stories that get cause and effect in the wrong order. In any case, Michael Crichton says, you read with exasperation or amusement the multiple errors in a story or in a news story on the TV, and then you turn the page to national or international affairs, and you read the rest of the newspaper as if it was somehow more accurate about Palestine than the baloney you just got done reading. In other words, you turn the page and you forget what you know. And he calls that the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. Again, I call it the blind faith amnesia effect. You see what's happening? You're granting the media this imaginary authority that what they say has merit. You're giving them your blind faith that they know what they're talking about. But even when they prove that they don't know anything that they're talking about, in one subject that you happen to know expertly, you turn the page and go on to a different subject, or on the nightly news, they stop talking about that subject and they go on to the next piece. You forget that they just totally revealed how ignorant they are, and you go right back to believing that they are trustworthy. For example, like, let's say that they're talking about the bricklaying, and now they go on to talking about the economy. You go, okay, well, the news knows what they're talking about the economy. You forget that they just proved to you that they don't know anything. They're about as trustworthy as a tick on a dog's butt. But you just totally forget that, and you go right back to trusting them again. Same way with the newspaper. And this blind faith amnesia effect, I see it all the time in my own work. The professional community as a group is totally incompetent when it comes to emotional disorders and borderline personality disorder, authentic recovery. They don't even know that it's inherited, not genetic. They don't even know that it's an emotional disorder, not a mental illness or a mental health issue. They place no importance on those things. They keep people enslaved to their emotional disorders, and even after this has been proven absolutely undisputably true, the person will come back and say to me, well, they diagnosed me with this other thing. Giving them credit as being credible for some other thing unrelated to emotional disorder, supposedly, and just throwing their blind faith totally into it, 100%. Well, they said it, so it's got to be. So you forget that they have totally discredited themselves on this subject, and you go right back to blindly giving them your faith and trust and confidence on an entirely different topic. Don't find yourself a victim to the blind faith amnesia effect, or the Gell-Mann amnesia effect that Michael Crichton talks about.